Ladies and gentlemen, welcome into Indaba Africa. This is Chris, my guest today. He'll be with us in just a moment. I didn't want to sit here keeping you all waiting into perpetuity, so welcome. And something's looking odd there. Okay, my software is acting up. There we go. Yeah, my Logitech software is trying to update on me. And, okay, I have a note from her. Just a moment. Let's see what she says here.
Hi, we can start now.
Okay. Yeah, she's telling me we can start though, but I need a Skype. She's okay. I think there's some confusion here. Right. Anyway, so yeah, welcome aboard, folks. Tuning in for my special guest today on the Monday special feature. Good to see you here, Quentin here, Kumo Matlakane, Wesley. Good to see you as usual, William van der Veld, Davy van Heerden. Good to see you guys. Welcome aboard. Just trying to sort out getting my guest in now. This is why I always call people ahead of time, a couple of days ahead of time, or an hour or two before we get started. We weren't able to do that today to make sure that we can communicate. So she's calling me. Okay. Okay, just a moment. All right. Copy. I'm going to go into, here we go. And I'm going to try to get her. So please be patient here, folks. I appreciate you being patient. There we go. All right. Okay, I've said to hi to her, and hopefully she'll come up there in a second, and then I'll get her in on the call. And, of course, now I'm embarrassed here because I've not had a chance to chat with her ahead of time to do the things I normally do to make sure that I pay justice to people's names, whether it's in Afrikaans or Tswana or Khoisa, So I assume her name is pronounced Unathi or Unathi Kwaza. Kwaza is easy. That's not hard. So now I've not had that chance, so we'll see how it goes. I've sent her a Skype, and just waiting for her to come up on that. Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome in on a Monday special feature on Indaba Africa. This is Chris Wyatt coming to you from central Pennsylvania. So happy that you all could be with us here this morning on the East Coast of the U.S., this afternoon, early evening in Botswana and South Africa, still late afternoon in Namibia and in Nigeria and Ghana as well. Well, welcome aboard, folks. Just waiting for her to come up. Oh, there she is. Okay. Hello? Are you there? Can you hear me? Okay, I lost her. All right. Well, this might be technical. Yes, for those who... Okay, there we go. Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, okay. You probably can't see me because my camera's being used by the stream. Could you turn on your camera for me? There you go. Okay, gotcha. Give me just a moment. I'll bring you in here. The audience is hearing what I say. So since I didn't have a chance to add this before the hour. Okay. So how are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
Another day.
Yes.
I'm well. It's better, people always ask me, how are you today? I always say older, and they laugh, and they say, why do you say that? I said, because it's better than the alternative.
Absolutely.
The alternative is to not have gotten older each and every day. So just a moment, I'm getting you set up here.
All right.
Can you adjust your camera a little bit? Because your chin is cut off. You don't want to do that.
You wouldn't want that.
There you go. All right. Let me see. Let me get you sit
Is
back.
this better?
Yes, yeah, that's great right there. That's perfect when you sit back. Excellent. So we didn't get a chance to talk ahead of time, which is something I normally do with my guests. So I don't like to butcher people's names, although for Afrikaners, I can never promise that's not going to be the case because they have some very difficult surnames to pronounce. But even though I speak German and some Afrikaans, but your name, do you pronounce your first name Unathi or Unathi? Unathi. How do you pronounce it?
Unathi.
Unathi. Okay, so it was correct. That's how I was saying. Unathi Kwaza. So, Ms. Unathi Kwaza, welcome to Indaba Africa. It's my pleasure to have you as my guest today.
Thank you for having me.
It's a great pleasure. So normally I introduce you offline, but you're on the screen already. So let me just read stuff that comes right off your Twitter account. So Unathi is a businesswoman. She's a board member of the Free Market Foundation, a council member at the Institute for Race Relations, and she also works with the African Women Enterprise. Now, for those who don't know her, I think in South Africa, a lot of folks do know who she is, but I have to be honest, I didn't know who she was. I wasn't that tuned in because I'm not a major Twitter follower. I got it turned off on Twitter a long time ago. I keep my account, but I think I have like 30 followers. That's it, or subscribers, whatever it is, followers. It's not many. But I used it mostly to get some news. But you have 44,000 Twitter followers. Isn't that the case?
Yes, I do.
Wow. So how, before we get into a little bit about yourself and your background and things, how is it that you come to have 44,000 followers on Twitter? Clearly somebody either likes what you have to say or they just want to troll you all the time. One of the two, or both.
Both of them. I suppose what I say, you won't just find it on mainstream media. So that's why I have a troll of people, an army of people who won't even listen to what I'm saying, but will find wrong things with what I'm saying. So it's difficult to engage with such people. But at the same time, I also have a great followers who understand what I'm saying and feel exactly the same way that I'm feeling. So I use my platform to speak to them and to speak for them because some of them are afraid to speak out. Obviously, some are afraid to lose their jobs. Luckily for me, I work for myself. So if I ever got fired, I would have to fire myself, which I'm not gonna do.
Well, if you do fire yourself, we're going to have to take you in for a mental health evaluation, I'm sure.
Yes.
So Unathi, let's talk about that then. You are a businesswoman. What sort of business are you engaged in? What do you do?
I mean, direct sales and marketing, that's a nice way of saying I sell goods. I sell household goods, like from your bedroom wear to your kitchenware to lounge. I also sell cosmetic products of companies that are known in South Africa. And yeah, that's basically what I do. And obviously, in my spare time, I have time for libertarians because I'm a classic libertarian and there's not a lot of us in South Africa. So it feels like another full-time job of having to educate people about liberty. If you remember, South Africa was liberated, so to speak, in 1994.
Mm-hmm.
But here we are in 2020. We still must fight for the freedoms that we thought we have in this country, starting with freedom of speech, which is one of the best freedoms that I think are important. So here we are. We have to fight for that again. And I'm always fighting. People will ask me, Unat, why are you always fighting? I fight because I think liberty and freedom is too important not to fight for. So that's why I do what I do. That's why I say the things that I say, which don't make a lot of people on the left side very happy.
No, I can imagine. I don't make many people on the left happy either, anywhere around the world. But I can understand your struggle. I've spent 36 and a half years in uniform in the U.S. Army around the world, all over Africa, Middle East, Europe. And of course, the reason I did that was a deep commitment to liberty, freedoms, and rights. And so I do appreciate that. But on your business, so do you sell name products? Like, do you sell Dark and Lovely, or do you sell? I mean, are
I sell
are these your own products, or
I
locally?
sell No, I sell home choice products.
Okay.
Those are mainly the household stuff, and I sell Avon and Justine. Justine is was a South African company which was started in 1973. But over the years, Avon, when they came to South Africa, they worked with Justine, and over time they bought over Justine. So the company now is called Avon Justine, and Home Choice is quite a household brand
Yep.
as well. And honey products, that would be your handbags, shoes, jewelry, custom made jewelry. So that's basically what I do, and I do that from home. And I find that with technology, it's very easy to work from home these days. And so the only time I interact with, I mean, outside of the internet, whether it's WhatsApp or email, with customers is when I deliver to them.
Well, so yeah, I was going to say, so you're able to sell from home, and
Mm.
it's funny because growing up, Mary Kay and Avon were household names, but they are still around here in the U.S. and they are big, but I just don't see them anymore. Other than occasionally you see the pink Cadillacs that those who had big sales for Mary Kay have. Do they have a program like that in South Africa? If you sell a lot for Avon, do you get something special or no?
Yes, yes, you do. You travel to, like, let's say once a year to a certain destination. If you have enough sales, you could go to Mauritius, you could go to Singapore, Thailand, all these places. The same with Justine. I'm sure the same goes for home choice products. So it depends on how much you push yourself in your business. And yeah, that's basically how it goes. But with the economy the way that it is in South Africa, it hasn't really been easy for consumers because households now have to count every penny that they have. So they can't really splurge on nice things like perfumes or jewelry, that kind of thing. But I mean, I'm not complaining. I am still making sales, and I'm grateful for that.
Were you seeing that? Excuse me. Were you seeing that slowdown with in your business and sales before COVID-19, or has it just gotten demonstrably worse? I would imagine it's got demonstrably worse under COVID-19, or has it picked up maybe the other direction?
Strangely enough, it picked up a lot, probably three times the usual. I don't know if it's because people were bored at home, so it was easy for them to look. It was easy for them to go through the catalog and just send Unathi a message and say, "Can I get this?" So obvious, but the only downside was that there are products that the government decided that they are not essential products. So, for instance, if you wanted to buy a bedroom suite, you could buy it, but you weren't going. They weren't going to deliver it to you because government decided for you, which is the most ridiculous thing you can think of. Government decided that these products are essential. These ones are not essential. These businesses are essential. These ones are not. That's why our economy is the way that it is right now. So a lot of businesses, unfortunately, will not be reopening, because South Africa, I don't know, for whatever reason, decided that we need to have stringent lockdown regulations that are not based on any evidence that, I mean, in Africa as a whole, we didn't have too much of a burden of the COVID-19, but politicians decided that this is their chance to grab more power. And so they didn't hesitate to do that. I mean, 11 people were killed by police and soldiers in South Africa during the lockdown since 27th of March. No one is talking about it. The media in South Africa is like silent. They're not. I mean, can you believe that even George Floyd in the US made a lot of news in South Africa compared to the 11 people who were killed by the police and soldiers in South Africa? So it's the most ridiculous thing, and it's I don't know what United Nations and the what is this Human Rights Council are saying about all these things, atrocities that we are seeing in South Africa. But I'm one of those people who I refuse to be silent, because if I were to be silent, it would mean that I'm condoning what is happening in this country, and it's against human rights. It's a humanitarian crisis, and the world must know what is happening in South Africa.
No, absolutely. I agree with you. It's the government of South Africa and the mainstream media in South Africa couldn't be bothered to say anything about Collins Kosa for 2 months.
Absolutely.
Now, the media did report on it initially because it was shock value, and they love shock value. It gets clicks and it gets people to turn on SABC and fall asleep. But what happened is that within a matter of days, they weren't talking about it. The other thing, too, is that the government is not talking about the informal trading sector in South Africa, and they've done virtually nothing for informal traders. Now, I and other folks in alternative media have been talking about the issues of what's happening with the security services, and what's happened to Collins Kosa, what's happening with informal traders. That's something I've been harping on from the very beginning, as well as the impact of cutting people who are addicted to alcohol and cigarettes off from things they're addicted to, the potential for mental health, for spousal abuse, for gender-based violence, and you hear virtually nothing from the government. What I find particularly disturbing, Unathi, is you've alluded to it, is that when George Floyd, what's happening now, it's nothing to do with George Floyd. That is an issue that's already been addressed. But when this comes up, suddenly the ANC, in cahoots, a collusion with the EFF, who's not even a ruling party anywhere, have decided to have Black Friday every Friday. Why couldn't they do that 2 months ago when Collins Kosa was killed by the security services, and every single person involved, from the soldiers on the ground to the police on the ground, from SAPs to the supervisors, were all Black South Africans? Now Black Lives Matter. What about the poor lady, Miss Pule, who was just butchered and stabbed to death and then hung from a tree, 8 months pregnant? And of course, we're just picking up the UCT student. We could go on and on about this, but yeah, it's
I mean,
really
we could
sad.
go on. Yeah, we could go on about the farm murders even in this country. In just since January until to date, it's like every day there's a farm. There are farmers who are being attacked viciously. Some people say that when we talk about farm murders in South Africa, people say that we lose other people as well. But the difference for me, as someone who stays in a township, the difference is that someone who's going to kill me in a township is someone from my township, not from outside my township. So it's not the same. And Chris, you can even look at the way, the viciousness of how they attack these farmers. It's goodness. How do you burn alive an old woman and rape them and then kill them in front of their children, young, even their grandchildren. How is that not a planned crime? And some people are saying that it's just it happens by chance. It happened by chance. It's just opportunity crimes kind of thing. But it's not. These are planned. Someone asked on Facebook yesterday, who is funding these people who are doing this to our farmers in South Africa? And you'll never hear anything from Ramaphosa except for when he denies that farm murders are a problem in South Africa. I'm one of those people who refuses to be silent because farmers have a right to be in this country. They're South African just like I am. They're African the way that I am. And I mean, it's just a humane thing to treat each other with respect and to just respect human lives, which is something that we don't have in South Africa. I mean, look at the tourism numbers, even the fact that, I mean, even besides the COVID-19 crisis, the fact that we keep losing tourists in this country, they're brutally murdered or they are mugged or robbed, all those kinds of things. Government has totally lost control of the crime situation. And that's why now they're just chasing after people who are smoking their cigarettes, freely smoking their cigarettes. It's a crime now to smoke a cigarette.
Well, it's a crime. It's a crime to sit on a beach or to go surfing at the wrong time.
Absolutely, it's so ridiculous.
It's so heinous. It's so heinous. It's so contrary to public order.
Absolutely. I mean, even the Constitution doesn't allow for this. Just last week, there was a ruling in the courts that said that these lockdown regulations are unconstitutional. But unfortunately, the court didn't say they should suspend them immediately. They gave them two weeks to look into them and correct them. How do you correct something that is unconstitutional, which is the gripe that I have with the courts currently? I mean, look at the way that these regulations have altered our lives. Our livelihoods have been taken away from us. And yet the Constitution says that all South Africans have a right to earn an income, have a right to work and earn a living. That's something that the politicians don't understand. So when a court says that what you're doing is unconstitutional, why then are they saying that you can continue doing it? And then in 2 weeks' time, we'll give you more time to fix it. You cannot fix something that's unconstitutional.
No, you can't. And how do you compensate someone for the things that you do to them with unconstitutional acts? That's quite a difficult situation. Well, just a moment there. Let me do a little bit of housekeeping here very quickly, Unathi. So Crystal Hoya just did a super chat for 350, and it's just no question, no comment. He's just contributing to the channel. Thank you so much for that. I really appreciate it. So, folks, you're listening to Indaba Africa. This is Chris Wyatt here on the Chris Wyatt Africa channel from Central Pennsylvania. My special guest today is Unathi Kwaza, who is a self-described libertarian and a businesswoman in South Africa who we were discussing about whether her business has picked up or gone down, and we really didn't get much further than that. But I suspect what happened is that those who have the means were prohibited from going to shops, and so it made you an attractive alternative. Although, of course, the bizarre stance by the Minister of No Trade, Ibrahim Patel, you notice I do call him the Minister of No Trade, to say that e-commerce is unfair and unfair to bricks and mortar operators whom they've shut down. And I'm thinking, listen, I've been on the internet since the 1980s because I was in government, before there was a World Wide Web. When Mosaic came out in 1994, that opened up the World Wide Web and e-commerce began forthwith. If in 2020, 26 years later, you do not have an e-presence, then I have no empathy for you. Anyway, so the Minister of No Trade shutting down e-commerce, that's just insane. You don't have to answer the question, but I wonder if you were shut down as well, but because you couldn't deliver things. But now that the ban is lifted, hopefully that's picking up your sales. It sounds like it has.
I like the fact that you're calling him the Minister of No Trade because he's totally against trade. He's against small businesses. He's against, more importantly, the government of South Africa is against white-owned businesses. I think we don't talk much about it, but there's a fund that was started. Big businesses donated billions of rands into this fund, and government said, goodness, they don't see anything wrong with even saying that this is going to be for only black-owned businesses. I mean, white business owners also pay their taxes, their rate in taxes, and everything that they have to the government. And yet it's time for a crisis. And when businesses have donated to the fund, government says that, oh, if you're white, then you don't deserve to be helped. I mean, goodness, these white businesses also employ a lot of black people. So you're saying to me that if you are a black person and you work for a white-owned business, then you don't deserve help. I mean, I don't know why politicians come up with these ridiculous, and unfortunately, no one is challenging this again in court. And it's not easy to go to court. You need to have money. You need to have money for lawyers. So unfortunately, some of us have to leave those to other people. And big businesses is not really challenging government. And it could be because they want government favors. And I can't think of any other reason. Because I mean, if you're losing billions of revenue, and why then wouldn't you challenge your right to trade in South Africa? Currently, as far as I'm concerned, South Africa is closed for business.
No, absolutely. But actually, it's rather disgusting too, because some super rich billionaires have donated money. Most of them are white, and that money is. I have a friend, a colleague who's an Indian South African. He's married to an Afrikaner, and he applied and was denied relief funds for his small business, and then he applied again, and it was simply ignored. They didn't give a response. He's bankrupt now. His business has collapsed, and with it, 18 black South Africans no longer have jobs, as well as him. He's
Absolutely.
lost his entire life's work, spent over 27 years building this business, and it's all collapsed because of this racial policy. Now, the Tourism Relief Fund, which was blatantly racist and obviously racial discrimination, that was opposed. Groups did take it to court, and the North Gauteng High Court, the same one that found elements of the lockdown regulations unconstitutional, they found that the Tourism Relief Fund was constitutional. It didn't violate equal treatment. I don't know what they were drinking that day, but also what maybe they were zolling. You know, when people zol, they put the saliva on the paper. They put the saliva on the paper. When people zol,
without any doubt, because I mean, I think one of the problems that we have in South Africa is that most of the judges are black, and prejudice fines you even if you are a person of the law, even if you're supposed to uphold the Constitution, which is unfortunate. Which is why then you'd have to get someone who has money to challenge that in the Supreme Court of Appeals. But all these things require money. And again, I go back to the media being silent on these atrocities and on all this racism that Ramaphosa, the president, is choosing right now. Media is silent, and because the media is complicit to the idea that if you're white, then you should be treated with the most terrible manner in South Africa. You don't belong in this country, and you owe black people something. And it's something I always say on Twitter that as a black person, no white person owes me anything unless you bought something from me and you refuse to pay me. Then
then you pay your bill.
then you. Other than that, no white person owes me. I mean, I'm a grown woman and I can take care of myself. I don't need. What is this thing? They're saying that there must be reparations for the past. It's ridiculous. And the people who are calling for these ridiculous things are just leftist people who have nothing better to do, frankly. I mean, last week, one of the professors in University of Cape Town wrote a piece, and he said that he's quite popular. He said he was talking about the wealth that it should be distributed to poor people. And I'm saying, no, that's ridiculous. If you decided with your life not to invest and take care of your children, why should your children suffer? I mean, why should people who did exactly that not leave inheritance to their own children? So it seems to me that all these socialists want to decide for you how to spend your money. And we should call out all these, because I go back to the fact that I'm a freedom fighter. I love liberty. And I think Africa could use a lot of liberty, because that's why the reason why we're poor. I don't know if you know Professor George Aite from Ghana, but
Oh, and
he's
very,
reciting.
very well. He's one of the most
Yes,
brilliant economists that's come out of Africa,
absolutely.
and for
Mm.
decades he has been bemoaning the victimization culture and the culture of handouts and demands. No, I think he's brilliant. I haven't heard people talk about him lately, but throughout my maturation as a young man and as an adult, I've always talked about him. He's absolutely brilliant. Of course, here in the U.S. we have someone similar, Thomas Sowell, who is
Ah,
also the same. Yeah,
yes.
these people are brilliant. I love them.
Mm, mm. And I like the fact that they are black people, and
Yeah.
they will tell you that if you want a better life, work for it. As a black person, no government is gonna bring it for you. Government will just talk about it because they want your votes, nothing else. But if you work hard, you finish school. If you're a young person, you don't start having babies before you start working. Uh, uh, because that's another problem we have in South Africa. We have a lot of teenage pregnancies,
Yep.
and we have a lot of unplanned children who are being born every day in this country. And unfortunately, it happens throughout Africa. And that's one of the reasons that this continent remains poor.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned that because I was going to mention I've got 3 videos that I'm preparing that I'm going to come up with here shortly. One of them is because tomorrow is the Day of the African Child. And so I'll be doing a video on the Day of the African Child. One of the things I'm going to talk about is the number of children in Africa and how the population pyramid is upside down in places like Uganda and South Sudan and Niger. But also I'm going to talk about teen pregnancies and the devastating impact it has on wealth development, poverty, and wealth accumulation. So I appreciate bringing it up. But there's 2 other videos I'm going to do. Your Skype is playing around. I'll fix it here in a second. But I'm also going to do one about, I've been holding off because the thing that came out in the Citizen about the ANC attempting to postpone the 2021 municipal elections, I'm going to title that one, Has Democracy Died in South Africa? And then for the U.S. side, I will be doing a video because Sleepy Joe Biden is now generating conspiracy theories claiming that Donald Trump will refuse to leave office when Joe Biden defeats him. And they're going to have to send in the Joint Chiefs of Staff to remove him forcibly from office.
Oh,
Of course, this nonsense is the same sort of thing that was taking place when 2016, when they got nervous that Trump might win, and he won. And like they said, well, if he loses, he'll refuse to accept the results. And as I recall, it's the deranged Hillary Clinton that still refuses to accept her loss because she was wildly unpopular. But anyway, I'm getting away from the topic. so
yeah.
so let me get back to the topic. Now, the super chat that I got from Christo, just let me go back because he said a couple things, and he just threw it in there. He was grateful. He says it's his appreciation for the work that Chris is doing. Well, the work that I'm doing is quite easy when I get fantastic guests like this who have similar views. So thank you so much, Unathi. And then he says, he also says that he's so happy to hear all the positive aspects that Chris is bringing with the likes of Unathi. So, no, I'm very happy that I think Paulie is the one who told me about you, and I'm actually glad to have discovered you. I'm glad to have you on the program today. So let's talk a little bit. Can I ask you a little bit about yourself personally, your background? Obviously, you're probably not a Portuguese South African, I'm guessing. So what's your ethnic background,
No.
if you don't mind sharing?
Oh, okay. I'm Xhosa. Yeah.
I figured that.
So
Well, no, based on the name and
I
also
was
based
born.
on the name, based on the accent. When you said that, for sure, I knew it.
Yes.
But also the fact that you're in the Western Cape, it seemed unlikely that you were Venda or PD or even Swana or certainly not
Yes.
Zulu. So anyway,
Yes.
so
Yeah.
now I always butcher the
So
Kosa because I didn't grow up with the San, so I always say Kosa. I get it wrong.
yes. Yes. So I was born in '78, right? I think right in the apartheid years, and
Wait a second. You told us the year you were born. What is this? Women never give up their age. What's up with that?
uh, it's the libertarian in me.
Okay. There you go. All right. I'm sorry. Didn't mean to interrupt. Please go ahead. So you're born in 78
Yeah.
during
Yeah.
apartheid, still
Yes.
going on.
Yes. And I got into trouble the other day on Twitter for saying that as a black person, I've never been disadvantaged, even though I was born in apartheid. I grew up in a home where I had a mother who was working, was a professional nurse, and who was providing for me because I'm her only child. Um, so I had good education in Catholic school, and I finished my schooling in the Eastern Cape, one of the provinces in South Africa. And I came to the Western Cape again to further my tertiary studies. I did a diploma in at college in food technology. So I'm a qualified food technologist. But I soon found out after 8 years that it wasn't for me. Actually, I think I found out within 6 months that it wasn't for me. Working in the laboratory was just working in the laboratory was just too mundane and too repetitive to motivate me enough. So, but it took me at least about 8 years to finally quit and start my own business.
No, it's interesting you say that because
And
I'm sorry.
yeah.
No, I was going to say, it's interesting you say that because a
And
friend of mine, when we were young officers in the Army, he decided after the Gulf War that the Army wasn't as interesting as he thought because he was a pilot and it wasn't quite what he thought. So his dream was to get out and he wanted to go home. That was the most important thing. He didn't want to be traveling the world. He wanted to be back in Illinois. So he got a job with Burlington Northern Railroads as a train master, the person who works in the building and changes the rail lines, the big where they all come in. And he thought that would be fantastic. And he did that for 3 months and we stayed in touch. And he said, "This sucks. This is the most boring thing ever." Now, the job paid quite well. I mean, it was thousands of dollars. It was paying quite well. So we have both been investing and saving what money we had to invest and sharing ideas for investing. And so I said, "Why don't you go become a stock trader?" He did. The guy's a multimillionaire now. He worked for Merrill Lynch, and it's worked out pretty well. He's had a pretty good life. But it's just funny how you think something's what you want to do, and then you wind up going a little different direction.
Absolutely. Look, the beauty of a country like the USA is that you can dream and be an entrepreneur and see the fruits of your labor, which is something that we don't have in Africa. We lack support from government through policies, the economic policies that they choose. As you have said before, talking about Ibrahim Patel, he's supposed to be a minister of economic development, but whatever comes out of his mouth is anti-business, is anti-entrepreneurship. And yet all of us agree that entrepreneurs are the ones where jobs are going to come from because big businesses are cutting jobs. I mean, they are big. They have nothing more to add except for keep the jobs that they have. It's small businesses that create more jobs. Even in South Africa, it's the same story. But if you have policies that are against these businesses, it means that creates a lot of red tape to a point where it's just better to be in the black market than to be a formal business. And but the problem now with that is that you're not going to grow your business. You're not going to be big like, for instance, the banks that we have in this country or your telecoms companies that we have in this country. That's all because government doesn't think that it's important to look into the policies. I mean, think about expropriation of land without compensation. Think about the fact, how is that affecting farmers in this country who would invest in a farm today in South Africa, knowing that there's a threat that their land will be taken by the state. I mean, the property market, who will buy more houses, who will sell more houses, because at the current rate, Cyril Ramaphosa, the president, doesn't seem to see further than his control issues. Look at what happened in Zimbabwe. I mean, Zimbabwe is just north of us. And we think as South Africans that our government thinks that things will turn different in South Africa. And we fail to learn from the failures of other countries. And unfortunately, that will cost us a lot as a country.
No, I'm absolutely with you. Don't get me started in Zimbabwe. That's a topic I'm very well informed on, and I've been railing against it since the year 2000. The absolute lies, distortions that took place. You know, this racialization of everything. You know, listen, there were racist white Rhodesians in Rhodesia, Zimbabwe. But the majority of them, not to hurt South Africans' feelings, and I'm not claiming that all Rhodesians who left were, but the majority of people who were committed to racialization that were white in Rhodesia moved to South Africa in 1980. They didn't stay. So most of the whites, and I knew many of them who lived in Zimbabwe, were Zimbabweans. You know, you see Christy Coventry, who's the Olympic swimmer who's won medals all over the world. She's a Zimbabwean. And what happened is that from 1980 to 2000, 42% of all land that was gazetted as commercial farmland, so it's designated commercial, 42% of all that land was sold at least one time, some of it multiple times, because, you know, farmland gets resold periodically. Now, here's the problem with the narrative that was played in Zimbabwe, and it's a very similar narrative, but same sort of thing in South Africa, is that land could have been purchased by the government, because the government of Zimbabwe under Prime Minister Robert Mugabe and then President Robert Mugabe had first right of refusal. That means that the land could not be purchased by anyone until the government lands ministry said, okay, we approve the sale. So Mugabe is responsible for 42% of the commercial farmland being in the hands of predominantly white commercial farmers. Not kith and kin, not the settler columns, not the Jameson raid, not pushing black Africans aside. That land could have bought. And then, of course, the argument's always, well, they didn't have the money. But the problem with that is that the British government gave Zimbabwe 63 million pounds from 1980 to 1994. Anyway, so we could go on about that forever. But you mentioned property. EWC. It's not just the farmers. Foreign direct investors do not want to invest in a country in which their investment's going to be stolen from them or nationalized, and where you have no property rights. This is insane, absolutely insane. It's you're already seeing in the Western Cape property values have dropped by 40% because of COVID-19. They were already depressed before that, and so this affects everything. Of course, what I've been harping on, because I don't think a lot of people realize this, is that expropriation without compensation. Of course, it's already legal with compensation. Section 25 of the Constitution allows for it. We have something similar in the United States, eminent domain. If something needs to be done for the public interest, in other words, to build a railroad, they need land, then the state can take it with fair compensation. And that already exists in South Africa. And if the South African ANC government was serious about land, for instance, they could have purchased land for the last 26 years. They've only purchased a small amount. In fact, if you look this year, they set aside 48 billion rand for Eskom to save their failing parastatal, and 4 billion rand to save their collapsed and bankrupt state-owned pet airline, SAA. Yet they only set aside $35 million to buy land. That's a joke. You can't even buy a vineyard in the Western Cape for that price. So no, I'm with you on that one. Absolutely. Now you do some other things, Unathi. So, for instance, you are also on a let me see. You're on this. You're a board member of the Free Market Foundation. Can you tell me about that? It sounds like a capitalist organization.
Absolutely, I'm a capitalist.
Well, shame on you. That's the dirty word. Don't you know that capitalists exploit people, especially people of color? It's all about exploitation and mercantilism and colonialism. You must have missed that briefing in university.
I'm a capitalist. I believe in free markets. I believe that the reason why Africa is poor today, Professor George Aite will tell you this, that African leaders in the 60s, 50s, when they got independence, they chose, because the colonizers were more on the capitalist side, so they decided that capitalism has to be the enemy. So we must do away with capitalism, and they imported socialism to Africa. All along, before I listened to George Aite, I thought that socialism was an African thing, and to my surprise, no, it wasn't. Africans have been trading for centuries, trading amongst each other for centuries. That was free trade. I don't know if you heard about the African free trade agreement, that the Continental Free Trade Agreement that they signed. But if you look, sure, it's on paper for most African countries, but people are still closing their borders and not allowing for free trade to happen. So I'm a capitalist. I believe that Africa would do well with capitalism. And China, look what happened in China, the transformation that happened when they decided to embrace capitalism. China boasts a lot of millionaires today and billionaires in the world. Sorry, that's my phone. I'm just going to switch. Yeah. Capitalism allows people to trade freely with each other. And with capitalism, and when the state stays out of business, that's how we can grow an economy. You won't do that if you are a socialist, which the ANC government is, and communist, because in their nature, their think tank is the South African Communist Party. Sure, these are people who are not really communists, because look at their lifestyles. The fact that they drive fast cars and stay in posh, thanks to the taxpayers, and stay in posh areas thanks to the taxpayers. So they're not real, but they say that they are Marxist in their ideology, which is something that is taking this country backwards. Look at the plan now is to because expropriation without compensation was never about land only. Look at the fact that now they want to take pensions of workers because they don't want to reform the economy. Because reforming the economy means that you are going, for the first time ever, as the government, you're going to be accountable for each and every cent that you spend. So they don't want that. They want to continue. The reason why SAA is going to be funded again, and your ESCOMs and all these state enterprises, your Dinell, the state manufacturing company, the reason why they keep getting bailed out is because they have contracts with black businesses who are in the ANC elite, and they. I mean, it's the only way they got them where they are as far as riches are concerned. Even our president is a billionaire today. What has he ever produced? Nothing. He's a billionaire because of the BEE, which is the
Lots of hot
racist
air.
policy itself.
No, I said he's produced lots of hot air.
Oh, goodness. So these are people who've never worked a day in their life. In 1994, what happened is that big businesses in mining sector, I mean, all industries, they gave them shares freely. I mean, if you want to buy a mine in South Africa today, you have to make sure that I think 30% of your shares must go to an ANC elite person. This is a person who's not going to earn. This is not a business person. They're not going to earn it. You just give them freely, and that's how they and their families have managed to enrich themselves in such a short space of time. I mean, how did Ramaphosa get his billions in like 20 years, for instance? It's through the BEE. And BEE, unfortunately, has killed the mining sector in South Africa. And we used to have the best gold. We probably still do. But unfortunately, business must go where freedom is. And that is something that we don't have in South Africa.
No, absolutely not. And you're right. No, this is something I've been complaining about since '94, and this collusion between the big corporate interest in South Africa, which people like to call white monopoly capital, which is not utter nonsense term, but the collusion. You've got these big companies. It's like you go to Menlyn in Pretoria, and you think that you're finding dozens of shops, but when you find out that Foschini belongs to Edcon, Edgar's belongs to Edcon, CNA belongs to Edcon. Of course, they're bankrupt now. And what happens is you have all these large conglomerates, and they want to be able to continue making their money. And the way they do it is they simply buy off the ANC by handing out stakes of equity. And that's how
Absolutely.
people like Toka Sekwala, and you've got Patrice Modise,
Yes.
and
Yes.
Cyril Ramaphosa have amassed their billions. So now you have, instead of a small, elite, rich, white cadre of people in the country, you also have a small, elite, rich, black cadre of ANC cadres who have no connection to the rest of society and don't really care. And so this system works for them. It's the height of irony to see Cyril Ramaphosa describe South Africa's economy as colonial and racist. It would be the same economy that he somehow profited to the tune of $450 million from. Is that not ironic?
Goodness.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, the hypocrisy. And I mean, the man has no shame, absolutely no shame.
No.
Remember last year when in Parliament he was asked by then leader of the opposition party, Musi Maimane, about, I mean, it was a scandal. It was obviously a bribe. His son, Cyril Ramaphosa's son, was bribed for 500,000 by one of the tenderpreneurs. I call them tenderpreneurs because these are not business people.
No.
These are people who wait for tenders from governments and make their billions from that. They give politicians favors,
Kickbacks
and they pay for
yeah.
politicians' school. They pay for politicians' children's schooling and housing and motor cars and all that. I mean, it's a typical African country, really. That's what South Africa has become. So he lied in Parliament. This is the president, and said that he knew where the 500,000 rands came from. And I mean, he didn't even say that. I don't know. I'll ask. He said that he was sure, and we've moved on from that. We have a president who lies unashamedly in Parliament about how his son receives bribes from these business people. And his son continues to do business across Africa. And obviously, he's using his father's name. If I had kids, I would never do that because I'm not a politician, firstly. And I don't have that privilege when they talk about white privilege,
Yeah.
politicians don't even see their own privilege in this country. So they really have no right to talk about privilege of any other race in this country. I mean, think about it. If you have all the policies of the country in your favor as a black person, and then you're still complaining about white people owning so much, why aren't you, when you have a chance to get through whatever means, through the policies of that government is pushing, whether it's affirmative actions, employment equity, or black economic empowerment? I mean, if you're still not getting enough, or not owning enough as white, as you claim that white people own in this country, then it just means that you're a loser. And I mean, all policies all policies are for you and not against you, like white people. I mean, white people in this country struggle to get even jobs because companies actually have become criminalized for employing white people, especially white men in this country. So if you are white, you're forced really to go into business. But government still goes to your business and wants to dictate who you should hire. I mean, there's a family business in South Africa, in I think Gauteng. They've been making chocolate for a very long time, and recently it was in the news that obviously it's a white-owned business, so it was in the news that the Labor Department people have a problem with the fact that they employ all black women in this company. I mean, they make chocolate, so obviously you need people who are able to use their hands delicately, because you've got this small chocolate sweet, and women do that better. So government has become so ridiculous that they want to know why aren't there any black men in this company. Goodness.
No,
That's how
absolutely.
petty we have become. Yeah, that's how petty we have become as a country. Our lawmakers are clueless. I mean, look at the quality of people we have in parliament, and ask yourself, how in the world? I mean, these people clearly don't even understand the constitution of this country, um, because we don't care about the merit of who becomes a public representative in this country. All you have to do is just to be in the good books of the ANC or your party, whether it's the opposition parties. So that's the I don't know. I just feel it's an insult to the voters of this country.
No, I think it's insult to humanity and Homo sapiens, the nonsense that's taking place in South Africa. The instant. So let me do a bit of housekeeping really quick, Unathi. There have been a few folks who subscribed, and I just want to thank them. So the Norm subscribed, Anna St. Paul a long time ago subscribed, and is it if I got it, Sherry or Cherry Cuts? Thank you all for subscribing. Listen, you've talked about a few things here, but before I want to make a comment, a few people are saying that we should get you linked up to have a debate or conversation with Bianca van Wyk. I don't think that would be fair to you because you'd wipe the floor. That woman is delusional. I listened to the
Oh my gosh.
Ronaldo Hose last night, and I only caught the last 20 minutes because I was out doing some gardening, and I came in and I was triggered, absolutely triggered. I wasn't going to do a live stream, so I did a live stream, and like 100 people came over to my live stream. We spent 40 minutes venting, so I don't think I'm going to do that to you. Link you up with Bianca van Wyk because she's clearly confused about life. But you mentioned the African Continental Free Trade Agreement, and this is something that's pervasive. Of course, I've lived all over Africa. Now, I've written extensively about the African Continental Free Trade Agreement. In principle, I think it's a decent idea. It has some merit, but the unbridled enthusiasm about a piece of paper, kind of like the Paris Climate Accord, it had no conditions to it, no penalties, no consequences for transgression for countries like China, and it was never a treaty for the U.S. We promised to sign up to it. So kind of like that. The African Continental Free Trade Agreement is an agreement that only 48 of the African countries agreed to pursue, and it would become effective when 22 had delivered the papers for ratification. So a minority of countries in Africa, many of them small, are the ones who decided that this would be the trade agreement. Now, beyond that, it's just a piece of paper. You have informal and formal barriers to trade. You have protectionism that takes place across the continent. You have inter-African trade is largely a joke. There's very little of it, even though it's been progressing of late. It's a joke 60 years after independence in Africa countries, and they keep blaming it on colonialism. But colonialism doesn't keep Togo from selling goods to Ghana. Ghana keeps Togo from selling goods to Ghana. And not to pick on Ghana, I'm just throwing that out there. And then in addition to that, there's no protection for intellectual property, for copyright protections, and so that Africans can profit from their ideas and their music and their art and their performances and such. Now, that's, to be fair, is supposed to be a topic of discussion, and the protocols and that are supposed to be delivered in January of 2021 at the African Union Summit. But I have little confidence in that. So what these people like to do around the continent is, oh, look, we have an agreement. It's going to save the day. And then they move on. It's kind of like infrastructure in Africa. You build a bridge, you build a power plant, and you never repair it. And 30 years later, you complain that the colonial master has left you high and dry when they're actually the ones that built the thing for you after the end of the colonial period, and you didn't maintain it.
Absolutely. I mean, that's exactly why Africa is poor today. That's why we're making more children than we are growing economies in Africa. So we will remain poor. And the politicians in Africa, the leaders that we look up to in the African Union or your SADC or your ECOWAS, these are people who've been in power for too long. In most instances, these are people who believe that socialism will take us out of poverty in Africa, irrespective of the results. Because where has socialism taken people out of poverty across the globe? So these are people who don't want to relinquish power. They are, I mean, if you've been in power, take Yoweri Museveni in Uganda and tell me, when will he leave power? He's been in power for over 30 years.
Since 1986.
Can you believe it? How old was I? I was 8 years old.
Yeah.
I mean, there are children and young people in Ghana who only know him as the leader of that country. He's so old and so ancient that what can he benefit his country? Think about the population of Africa. We have just over 1 billion of people in Africa. And most of these people, about 60%, are young people. And these are people who grew up in the internet age, who grew up in the social media age. And when a minister in South Africa, Ibrahim Patel, talks against doing business online, I mean, what does it say to these young people in Africa? So it just shows that these old people who've been in power for too long have nothing to contribute. And Africa's youth will only do well for themselves if they leave this continent. And unfortunately, some do leave the continent in very terrible circumstances. And some drown in seas trying to get a better life for themselves. Because there's really nothing when President Trump said that we African countries are shithole countries. I mean, you just have to come to South Africa. And the fact that in 2020 in South Africa, you talk about children in school who drown in human fishes, in toilets, and tell me, how is that not a shithole country? That is literally a shithole country. And unfortunately, President Trump didn't get people were like so against what he was saying. And yet it was true. In a way, he was reflecting on what is really happening in African countries. And I think we were lucky even now that COVID-19 didn't become as big as it was in Europe or China. Imagine what would have happened. We would have been wiped off, literally wiped off the planet if that had happened. But I don't know why COVID-19 didn't become as big as the media thought it would be. I mean, just in my township, when we had our first case of a positive COVID-19 person, the media went berserk and they came to Kailicha, which is something they never do.
Exactly. Unless there's a riot, that would be the only time they'd be there.
Exactly. And you know, when there are riots, they want to portray just one side of the story because they want to create alarm with people. So they never come here. I mean, we didn't even have a proper lockdown in our townships. The only time we felt a lockdown is when we were standing in a long queue in a shopping center, which was even ridiculous itself, because why do you say people should stand out of a shopping center in long queues and stand for hours? And then those people obviously will catch corona more faster than they go inside the shop, wear their mask, and go out within 30 minutes you're out. And unfortunately, it was one of those ridiculous regulations that they created.
No, absolutely. It's interesting. There's a lot of questions here, a lot of great comments, a lot of very complimentary things to you, Unathi. So thank you all for the nice things you're saying, but you're also saying some nice things about me. So thank you for that as well. But I did want to catch a couple things. UCN, who I think is based in Hong Kong. He's done a few super chats and it's Hong Kong dollars. So unless he's like, remotely, sending his signal from one place to another, I think he's based in Hong Kong. And I believe he's South African, but I also assume it's a male. I don't know that it's a male, but UCN has been on my stream for a bit and has some interesting comments usually. Now, I just want to do that. And then Nicholas Barato had a question for you, but I want to go back and I want to mention a few things that UCN said. UCN was talking about education being the answer and thinks that both white and black South Africans need to support and finance mass education. I'd agree with that. The problem is the ANC has squandered the money. They give BEE tenders to fictitious companies to deliver textbooks in the Eastern Cape, and the books are never delivered. But he also said something about, now the reason I want to mention him is because UCN mentioned something about capitalism. And something like capitalism is wild and greedy, and it's unbridled. Capitalism is exploitive.
But greed is good.
No, but right, it has nothing to do with capitalism. Socialists are greedy too. Look at the greedy taking of power in South Africa taking place right now, the power grab. But capitalism is the most novel and amazing system that's out there, and things go where there's demand, and where there's not demand, and people have no interest, things don't go. Now, capitalism, any economy, does need to have some sort of oversight and regulation. You don't simply have an economy unregulated. But what you have to have is fair regulation so that people have a right of redress. And that's part of the lacking issue with the African Continental Free Trade Agreement. If I make a contract with you, Unathi, and you're in South Africa, and you're supposed to deliver these beauty products for me, you're my wholesaler, you send them to me in Ghana, and I don't get them, but I've already paid you. What's my right of redress? Do I have a court that I can go to, take my case in either Ghana or in South Africa or at the African Union that I can get redress and bring you to book? These are things that are lacking. And yes, that's the sort of regulation that people need in a marketplace, a well-regulated, a reasonably regulated marketplace. But people get this bizarre notion that capitalism means that it's just, it's laissez-faire capitalism. There's no regulation whatsoever. They can do whatever they want. No, that's people are exploitive. That's the nature of Homo sapiens. Some people will always try to take advantage of others. So you have to have some rules and regulations. It's the same reason that as a people, as a polity, we create governments to represent our needs on a larger basis to meet the common good. So I think UCN's got some good points there, but I think it's often taken to a degree that people simply get carried away with. When you support capitalism, it doesn't mean you don't think that there shouldn't be customs or immigration or inspections or health safety, people checking the quality of food so it's safe. In fact, the capitalist wants that because that provides confidence in the marketplace. Same like securities regulation. We don't want criminals, defrauding people, selling penny stocks and stuff like that. That's why we have securities regulation. So I think there's a huge misperception about what capitalism really is. And people look at China, Unathi, and they go, well, look what China's done. Well, China's not capitalist and it's not socialist. It's a state capital society, and they have a distorted version of capitalism, which isn't really capitalism. It's more like mercantilism. But anyway, I'll let you jump in there.
Yeah. Yes. For me, what people call greed is really you being competitive. I mean, think of athletes, professional athletes. If they were not greedy to win, so to speak, if they were not competitive in nature, why would they be in sports? You have to have greed in order to. I mean, you need to be selfish as well. Is it Ayn Rand who talks about the virtue of selfishness? The greatest philanthropists I know are capitalists. Even now, the Solidarity Fund that I was telling you about in South Africa, the billions of rands that were donated came from capitalists. So I don't understand. Capitalism and entrepreneurship is the reason why now we are able to talk. We are in the US, I'm in South Africa, down in Africa, and in the tip, really, bottom part of Africa in Cape Town. And technology has allowed for that to happen, to make it possible. And we're not going to spend thousands of rands or thousands of dollars on this call because of capitalism. So if you talk about free trade, if you talk about free exchange between people, free exchange of goods between people, then I don't see what the problem is. It's just that socialists like to portray capitalism as a bad thing. And no, it's not a bad thing. It's good. I like having money. I like to have a good life, and that's why I do what I do. I'm greedy and shamelessly so.
I think you and Jeremy Nell, Germ Warfare, would probably get along very well.
Absolutely. I've done a few interviews with him. He's an amazing artist in South Africa. Unfortunately, he gets a bad rep, and they say he's a racist because they don't understand his art. And look, he'll never be racist. He's an amazing young man, and he does well in his career, and that's why I support him.
Well, he was on my channel yesterday. When we did I have a therapy Hemsbach here. So when I get triggered, I just bring it over, and you probably can't see it yet on the camera there, but I'm just kidding. It's a little stuffed animal Hemsbach. But no, but because of the Bianca von Veich nonsense yesterday, I decided to do a live stream, and everybody came on. And Germ showed up in the chat, and he goes, "Hey, I'm just popping in." And he started saying some things, and people were like thanking him or saying hey to him. And I'm like, "Listen, just sit in the chat and call in." So he called in, and I was only going to do an hour, and we talked for like an hour and 15 minutes. So it was a 2 hour and 40-minute live stream. But no, I think he's an interesting fellow too, and I also think that people misunderstand him. Very much the case. Now, Nicholas Barato had a question a long time ago, and I didn't forget it. I want to make sure I got UCN's comments in because I'd like to address that when it comes to capitalism. And anyway, but Nicholas Barato had a question. He says, "What's your view?" Let me make sure I get his comment here. I'm way back in the chat, so I didn't miss it. Well, now it did get away from me there. Sorry, but basically, I lost it here. Somewhere it's gotten away from me. But he asked the question about what's your position on Cape secession? What do you think about Cape secession? You support it?
Yeah. At first, I was not for the idea of. I suppose for me it was the fact that South Africa comes from having homelands where black people were put, depending on your tribe, you were put in separate, smaller provinces, and you were not part of the bigger South Africa. So at first, when I heard about Cape secession, I was like, no, I don't want it. But now, it's the way things are happening in South Africa. It seems to me that even provinces that are not interested in making themselves work will get money from treasury. You have all this centralization is what exactly is killing South Africa. You have all provinces must take all they've produced and give it to central government, which is the ANC, who's run by basically thugs, really. Most of them are thugs. It's just that the NPA, which is the National Prosecuting Authority, is not interested in prosecuting these people. I mean, goodness, every Sunday you read in media about scandals and how they've just now with the Solidarity Fund donated for COVID-19. There are billions of rands that have been stolen. Nurses in South Africa are dying and doctors are being infected because there's not enough protective clothing for them. There's not enough PPE, no face mask, no face shields, no gowns to protect themselves. So they're dying in South Africa, and no one is talking about it and making a big deal out of it. And yet money is being stolen from that fund that is supposed to provide for them. You have a health minister who's not going to address that. Some nurses have walked out of hospitals because how do you work with someone who's got COVID-19 and you don't have protective clothing yourself as a medical professional? So they walked out of these hospitals in the Eastern Cape especially. And this is one of the provinces that is known for corruption. They stole even Nelson Mandela's funeral money. The premier, who was sort of a governor in that time, in that province, found 250,000 rands was found in his bank account. And he said that there was something wrong with his bank account, and it ended there. He was never jailed for stealing. No one went to jail really in that province. So when you talk about Cape secession, then it would give us, as the Western Cape, an opportunity to just focus on us and to because as far as I'm concerned, this is the only well-run province in the country. You can talk to the statistician general, you can talk to the auditor general. The way we manage our funds is the best, really. Not that we're perfect, we're not perfect. It's just that we respect voters, we respect residents, and our municipalities are the best run in the country. So in that sense, it will make sense to secede from South Africa, really.
Well, let me get some. Unathi, we've gone past the hour. Are you okay to stay a little bit longer, or are you? I know you're very busy on
Sure.
Twitter, so we'll go a bit longer. But
No. I'm having too much fun.
no, before we got started, because this now not to pick on you and not to use gender stereotypes, but you're my first guest ever that we didn't start at the top of the hour. We were a little late. And people were surmising that you were busy tweeting before it. And I said, yeah, that's probably what she's doing. She's tweeting. So anyway, but let me read some of these comments that came out in the last bit here. Now, UCN's comment earlier was, wild West capitalism is grossly exploitative. And I wholeheartedly disagree. And I think that Unathi would also disagree, because that's a mischaracterization of capitalism. That's and I'm not picking on UCN, but thank you for sharing that. Skulk Waters says, Chris, it was a great idea to get Unathi on your stream. She's a level-headed lady that should appear on more streams to get her message out to the world. Well, I think that sounds like a good idea. And then Skulk also said, he asked me to get Odez. He keeps pushing that guy. I'm going to check into that. But UCN was answering Corvid68 and said, South Africa's never worked for most of its people. Great imagination is required. Cooler heads in all communities must prepare for South Africa to progress and do the necessary. On the surface, I would agree pretty much with what UCN said there. It's never really worked for all South Africans since it's become a country in 1910. Now, Tertia Basson says she's a big fan of Unathi and the Institute for Race Relations. Contago Matt says the wheels continue to come off. Well, as the wheels continue to come off in South Africa, Chris's channel will be more crucial to keep the world informed. Well, thank you so much, Matt. I'm trying, doing my best here. It's now that I'm no longer constrained with my free speech by being a serving officer. The muzzle has come off, and I'm trying to make sure the world knows what's actually happening in South Africa, because I'm actually very scared for all South Africans what's happening right now. This power grab by the ANC is very disturbing. And then UCN says we need to define the term greed, otherwise we risk being misunderstood. I think that's fair, but I think what Germ and what Unathi are trying to say is that, and like Ayn Rand, it's not a bad thing. It's just a part of being a human being. The question is if you're greedy, do you do it to the detriment of others? That's a fair moral question. But being greedy is, you've seen people who hoard things that they get. But if you earned it and you bought it on your own, what's wrong with that? But
Absolutely.
yes. So let me see what else. Yeah. Now you are a founding member of the ZACP, and that's not the South African Communist Party, but rather that's the Zuid-Afrika Capitalist Party. Is that correct?
It's the Capitalist Party of South Africa.
But you're a founding member, is that correct?
Absolutely. There were 10 of us, like-minded souls who love liberty. And we decided that property rights are too important, individual liberty is important, defending your property and defending yourself, as in arming yourself, which is something that our police minister in South Africa is totally against. He wants everyone to bring their guns to him. And unfortunately, South Africa, even the police are corrupt. We have police stations get burgled by, I'm sure, by themselves, by the police themselves, and they steal weapons. Even where the base of where the soldiers stay and where they keep the arms, even those places get robbed in South Africa, burgled, and people steal arms in South Africa all the time. So the police minister wants us to bring the law-abiding citizens to bring their arms to him. I mean, in this country, you can't even trust the police to protect you. You can't depend on them to protect you. So why would you stupidly bring your arm? I mean, it's the only way that you can protect your family. It's the only way that you can protect yourself against all these criminals in this country that government is not interested in. I mean, just recently they released 19,000 prisoners. For what exactly? They said that it's because of the coronavirus. I mean, they can't protect citizens, law-abiding citizens. They want to protect prisoners who have terrorized people in their communities. I mean, that's how ridiculous this country has become under the ANC. And I don't know if you know, last week there was a court ruling in the Constitutional Court. They said that we can now stand as independent and challenge to be, I mean, even I, as Unathi Kwaza, I can stand and say that I'm going to be president in this country. And that's a very important ruling that came.
I think your Twitter account actually says that, the next president, our future president.
Yes. I mean, we need people who are going to put this country first. We
Hmm.
need people who believe in the people of this country, because South Africans. I don't know if you've met any in the US, but throughout the world, South Africans go and do great things because we are generally amazing people. Canada will take South Africans. The US will open their borders for us. Everywhere, New Zealand, Australia, all of these places, because we are hardworking people. Saudi Arabia, our nurses are going there, the UK, because we are hardworking people. Unfortunately, our country is badly run by politicians who don't care about merit. I mean, just today, the Minister of Social Development says that she wasn't aware that closing businesses during the lockdown would cause so much poverty and hunger in the country. Hello, just because your salary is still going, you're getting paid the same amount, getting paid, which is a fat cat salary. She didn't think that closing businesses and stopping people from going to work would cause poverty. I mean, just now I'm running. I don't know if you know, I'm running a food funding campaign through Back a Buddy. And if people can donate, please do. Because I get so many every day, I get requests of hungry people in South Africa, mainly from Gauteng, which is supposed to be the city of gold. People are hungry in Gauteng because 90% of the people I'm helping are from there. And you have a minister who says that she didn't know that people would go hungry. I mean, that's the level of
Stupidity.
that.
So
Exactly,
we call those people the illiterate literates, people who are educated
exactly.
but they're functionally illiterate when it comes to life. No, Unathi, the world in fact is upside down in South Africa. That's one of the reasons why I do three different efforts with my YouTube channel. So I have prepared videos on subjects of all over Africa, geopolitics and around the world, things like that. Like I did a video a few weeks ago on the World Health Organization excluding Taiwan from the World Health Assembly once again, even though it was a virtual conference because they kowtowed to Beijing, they kept Taiwan. Taiwan at the time had 24 million population with just 443 cases of COVID-19 and 7
Wow.
fatalities. By comparison, Iceland with 365,000 people had 1,500 cases and 21 fatalities. So clearly Taiwan was doing something correct, being only 165 kilometers from mainland China, yet they somehow... And by the way, Taiwan did not shut down the economy, lock people up, and treat them like lepers. So they have great best practices, but they were excluded because the World Health Organization and Dr. Tedros, the avowed communist socialist turd, kowtowed to China. So it's really, so the world is upside down. And the two things disturb me. You talk about doing charitable things, and thank you for your work there. I don't have that in the stream, but I'll get the information from you afterwards, and I'll put it on the channel so people can make sure they can go find where to help out with that. Also, I'd like to put your business channel on there if you don't mind, so that people can go shop, if they can go shopping if they want, at least while we have e-commerce.
Yes.
But we'll get that after the discussion. But the world is upside down. During the early stages of this crisis, when they started the lockdown, the ANC government criminalized charitable people who were taking food to hungry South Africans. White South Africans in particular were targeted, who were taking food to black South Africans because one can only surmise the ANC didn't want to see that image of white South Africans helping poor, hungry South Africans. Very disturbing. And a lot of people were criminalized. Now, hopefully that will be overturned and set aside when their court cases come up because those restrictions were declared unconstitutional. But the other thing is that you see that Beckett Sile talking about, well, we've arrested 230,000 people during the lockdown. He's all proud of the fact that they've criminalized normal behavior of law-abiding South Africans of all races and communities. And he doesn't have the time to be bothered to talk about the abuses of the security state in killing people, detaining people, criminalizing behavior. It's very disturbing. Now, the Western Cape got a lot of attention because it seemed like there, at least from the outside, looking in from the press, there seemed to be an awful lot of SAPS and SANDF presence in the Western Cape on beaches and places where South Africans who had means would go during the lockdown, and almost no presence in many of the townships around South Africa. Is that an unfair characterization, or is that your experience?
No, it's my experience. You know, we're 26 years into democracy in South Africa, and yet law enforcement and the ruling party, which is the ANC, still has that mentality that wherever they see white people, they have to show them who's boss. That's why even the so-called hate speech laws are targeted against towards white people in this country. I mean, Julius Malema can say that he can he's going to slit the throat of whiteness, and then he says that not yet. He gets away with it, and
Yeah.
you'll find a Vicky Mombeck spending time in jail just for
Yes.
using words.
Yes.
Yeah, just for using words. Sure, it's not nice words, but free speech. We wouldn't need free speech if all of us said nice things to each other. And I wouldn't want to live in that country anyway, where everyone pretends to be nice. And if you're angry, you must show your anger. And sure, she said what she said, but it was no reason to put her in jail. It just shows that this government is after white people, and every day, I mean, the fact that if you're white, you run a business, you're not entitled to get financial help from a fund basically that was started by businesses in this country, and these businesses are silent on that. They're not questioning why this fund is being run in a racist manner. I suppose they're afraid of the ANC. They're afraid that they will lose the favors that they get from government, favors that are not helpful to small businesses, really. So all these things, unfortunately, and the fact that the media in South Africa has decided to be silent. A president in South Africa will have a press conference, but the media is not allowed to ask him any questions. And if you talk about freedom of the press, why is the press not making a big deal out of it? It's like they're funded by whoever funds them. I don't know if Ramaphosa is funding them, but their voices have been taken away, and civil society as well. Their voices have been taken away during this lockdown, and the people of this country are suffering for it.
No, absolutely. You brought up a topic I didn't think we were going to get to talk about that today. I didn't really think about it, but it's certainly not something that should be forgotten. You mentioned Vicky Momberg, but it's not just Vicky Momberg. So there's Penny Sparrow, of course, who was hounded.
Yes.
Now, listen, what Penny Sparrow said was rude and disgusting, and it was in bad taste. But it was a private communication, although I know it was on Twitter. So, but it was her comment or Facebook, whatever it was. But she was hounded, and she died. And, I mean, I'm sure the stress of what happened to her.
And people were celebrating that.
Yes,
people
they're celebrating her. They're celebrating her
death.
death. Yes, it's disgusting.
It's so disgusting.
Now, the part that disturbs me about what happened to Vicky Momberg is I watched the video. The woman was in shock. She had post-traumatic stress disorder. She had just been attempted to rob her, and it took forever for the police to get there. She was still in shock, and that was never a consideration. I'm not defending what she said, and I don't need to. Listen, I mean, it's a bad word. It's a word I wouldn't use in popular, but it's an Arabic word anyway. It's not even Afrikaans. It's an Arabic word. It comes from Arabic. But the point is that to criminalize speech like that. Now, she was supposed to pay the policeman an outrageous amount of money, something like $30,000 for calling him names.
God.
It's just insane. And then she's a convicted felon and sent to prison for the words she said. In the meantime, as you mentioned, yeah, good.
And this is a country, where rapists walk freely, where murderers.
That's what I'm trying to get at. So one of the biggest problems is the value of life is so cheap in South Africa because the odds of a person who murders somebody or robs somebody or rapes a woman or a girl or a toddler, for God's sake, they were doing that years ago to stop HIV if you rape a toddler. So the odds of actually being caught are low. The odds of being caught and charged are even lower. The odds of being caught, charged, and tried are infinitesimally low. And all of that, man, being convicted and then put in prison are almost non-existent. And so it's really, really sad what happens. And it's a sad statement of society. But when Helen Zille became the premier of the Western Cape, the disgusting, vile language coming from the ANC Youth League, the MK Military Veterans Association, and sitting members of the African National Congress in Parliament calling her a whore and all these disgusting things, and she picked an all-male cabinet so she got people to sleep with. They can get away with this. Those are things that are criminal actions in South Africa under your existing constitution and law. All of those people should have been charged, and not a single one was. And of course, it's really sad. Everything is really upside down here. What I really like refreshing about you, Unathi, is that we're having a conversation. I don't think you and I have either once mentioned that or paid attention that you're a woman, you're a black woman, you're South African, I'm a man, I'm a white man, I'm American. I don't think you or I really care about that. Does that matter to you? It doesn't
I
matter
don't.
To me. It doesn't matter to me.
I don't really.
No.
And you must and think about it. In South Africa, in 1994, they needed to get rid of white people in these jobs. Think of detectives who were white that we found in 1994 in these jobs. And so, or engineers, our municipalities are, I mean, we don't have problems with most areas in South Africa don't have problem with drought. But you have you have towns that have run dry. The dams are full, but you can't get water to the people in townships or suburbs. Uh, it's because they got rid of white engineers who had experience, who were qualified, and instead of saying, okay, let's work together. You have experience. You've been doing this for too long, so you know it better than we do as the ANC. No, they decided to get rid of them.
No, absolutely.
So we still, I mean, look at what happened at ESCOM. They have also admitted, Pravin Gordhan admitted that they did wrong. They got rid of white engineers from ESCOM or Dinel and all other, whether it's the police, it's the SANDF, which is the defense force in this country. I mean, municipalities, you won't find white people work there. It's just if you're a white person today in South Africa and you have white children, the best thing for you is to leave this country, or your children, at least when they're grown enough, to go and to other countries where they can get a better life for themselves.
That's very sad to hear that statement, but it's very. You mentioned engineers, ESCOM. Well, if you go to the French energy industry and their nuclear power plants in particular, you'll find they're full of Afrikaans-speaking South African engineers
Absolutely.
who fled to France because the opportunities aren't elsewhere. You mentioned nurses leaving. That's actually reality, but that would probably exist even if the ANC wasn't in governance and it wasn't a racialized society, because most of the nurses actually leaving South Africa are actually black nurses who are coming to the UK and to the US. But that's part of the governance issue. But it's also the fact that we have been poaching nurses from Africa for a long time because they're well trained, they're capable, and they get a much higher level of remuneration in the West. And they actually get to, at least in the US, a nurse has a much larger role in healthcare. They're actually able to make decisions, take decisions, and do things which you're just there in South Africa. It's all part of the nursing industry. So we've been poaching nurses for decades, and to our great shame, I would say, we have a shortage of nurses, but that doesn't mean we should take it from countries that are in greater need. But again, that's a market-based thing. If you can't make a decent living as a nurse, or you're not treated well, you're not given responsibility, why would you want to stay there? So I can understand. And on top of that, you have a government, if you're white or black, that is intentionally oppressing groups in the country for their own benefit and to distract people from stuff happening behind the curtain over here.
Absolutely. And nurses get paid well when they leave this country. And so they're able to send money back home, whether it's a nurse in Zimbabwe, whether it's a nurse in South Africa, whether it's a nurse from Zambia. They go to the West, basically. And teachers will go to China because they get well remunerated. In South Africa, you have these overly paid teachers who are not really even giving children what they're supposed to be giving them because they were not properly trained in a way. And we lost a lot of things in 1994 in this country because they closed colleges, nursing colleges, where you could train properly trained nurses. And all the nurses obviously have retired, and some of them would do well to go back to helping out in these communities, even if it's just a small clinic, even if it's a small clinic run by the private sector, that would even be better because in the like public sector, whether it's schools or healthcare services, you find that there's a lot of politicians doing each other favors, and so you'll get a job to manage a hospital if you belong to the ANC, or if you know someone who belongs to the ANC, if you're married or you're sleeping with someone who's in the ANC. So that's how you get ahead in this country, unfortunately. So, so I mean, that's what we've become really.
No, I got you. Let me do a little bit of housekeeping here real quick, Unathi, very quickly. Folks, thank you for tuning in. You're listening to Indaba Africa. This is on the Chris Wyatt Africa channel. I'm Chris Wyatt, a retired U.S. Army colonel with 36 and a half years service. A fair portion of that based in Africa, having served in Tunisia, Liberia, Botswana, Malawi, Niger, Mauritania, Uganda, and Ethiopia. And my special guest on a Monday special feature, which is an unusual day to do it, but we've got quite an interesting crowd here, is Unathi Kwaza, who is a businesswoman. And she's affiliated with the Institute for Race Relations and the Free Market Foundation. And she has some interesting things going on in her life. So we're talking about events in contemporary South Africa. But let me do a little bit of housekeeping and thank those who subscribed during the stream. I'm very grateful for that. A few comments here for us, Unathi. The Brew says, "Calabo, Unathi, you are a shining light and you gave me hope." Sorry.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Got a little choked up reading that. Sorry. Bobby B says, I'm loving having someone else besides Conscious Care covering South Africa and Africa in general. It's good to learn what's going on all over the world and a few concentrate in the continent. Well, you're welcome. It's my pleasure. He's talking about my channel. And then I haven't seen this person before. If I have, I've forgotten. I think I would have remembered. But conservative Texas chick is here. And she says, "Hi, Unathi. Go, girl.
Yes.
So happy to see you getting the attention you deserve. Truth matters. It takes great integrity for someone to do what she's doing and admire you so much." Yeah, absolutely. People keep calling you the Candace Owens of South Africa. I keep hearing that a lot.
Isn't she amazing?
She is. I think she is amazing. I don't agree with everything she says, but I love her courage and support her wholeheartedly, and I'd really love to see her stand for office at some point. The Bruce says, what is your view? Well, let me get back. I'll get back to a second. Conservative Texas chick says she was writing to bite your ankles. I'm preparing to have her come on and speak as well. She is an invaluable voice and ally for all South Africa who want to change things. So I take it the conservative Texas chick has a YouTube channel, so I'll have to check into that. Is she South African or is she just an interested American?
No, she's not South African. Someone introduced me to her, or yes.
Okay.
Or someone introduced me to her, and we've started chatting. And the world must know what is happening in this country. Yep. And if the world decides to look the other way, I mean, here in South Africa, we have the U.S. ambassador to South Africa, Lana Marks. She's so clueless about what is happening.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. You got that wrong. Her name is Banana Marks. Banana Marks.
Goodness, it's so dangerous to look the other way when atrocities are happening in the country. She was praising South Africa last month for the way they handled the lockdown regulations. She never said a thing about the murders. I mean, the killings that happened by the state. I mean, we in 2012 we had Madukana massacre in this country. Cyril Ramaphosa was part of those people, even if he was not in government at the time. But the fact that he didn't see reason to speak and to speak out against the violence that was happening in that time, and I strongly believe that that would have made a lot of difference. So when Lana Marks congratulates Cyril Ramaphosa in South Africa for handling things well, I mean, I'm the one who has to deal with poverty. I'm the one who has to deal with people who are hungry, who are going hungry every day in this country. And fathers who can't feed their families. Imagine what it does to a man to not be able to feed a family. It's a humanitarian crisis, and no one wants to talk about it. Not even the media is interested in it.
No, they're not, and that's really sad. So there's a few more things that have come in here I want to cover very quickly, but yeah, no, it's truly sad. So we're running up an hour and 30 minutes, Unathi, and I don't even feel like we've been here for an hour and 30 minutes, and we're just touching the surface of things. Can you go longer, or should we wrap up here shortly? I don't want to take up your whole day.
Please, let's wrap up.
Okay. All right. Well, let me just add a couple things very quickly. Yeah, because it can't get out of control. If you've seen my streams, I have to put a governor on myself. I've had 4 hour and 20 minute streams before, but
oh my goodness.
yeah, no, that's a one-time thing. But I have had some long ones. So I'll tell you what. The Brew asked about your view on Black Lives Matter and Chaz. We'll hold that, and maybe we'll get you back on. We'll talk about it later on. But so let's see with us. There's someone said. I'm gonna go back over here. I'm looking at the wrong chat. So very quickly, for very nice things here. So Wesley says Chris for ambassador. Yeah, there's a grassroots movement among South Africans to try to get me to be ambassador in South Africa. But if Trump wins, maybe I'll inquire. But and then Marius Krukamp says Unathi for president. Great knowledge. Some really nice things here. Jacques says Beckett Saley needs a new job. Yeah, I think he does need a job. I'm sure that there's someone that can clean the toilets at Menlyn Mall. He could try that. Anyway, that's my comment, not his. And people are being very kind here. Well, I'll tell you what. Rather than go on the comments, I want to thank everybody. We're not going to hang up yet. I'm going to give her Unathi a chance to say some final comments. But thank you all for tuning in. We've just peaked. We've hit 90 people watching at the moment, which is the highest we've had in the conversation. But we have been over 75 or 80 most of the time. So thank you all for tuning in and subscribe or for watching. Those of you who subscribe during the stream, thank you so much for following it. This channel, Indaba Africa, is about all of Africa and the U.S. and geopolitics. You'll find my videos. There is a strong concentration on my Stray Voltage, which is a live stream on South Africa. That's because I have so many South Africa followers at this point, and so we focus a lot on South Africa. But we do talk about other issues, particularly Botswana and other parts of Africa. But nonetheless, thank you. There's UCN has just donated Hong Kong $50 for Super Chat. Thank you so much, UCN. And also thank you for being active and for not being afraid to express your concerns, your views, even though sometimes people come in and say, wait a second, that's crazy. It's not. That's your view, and it has merit. So we thank you for that. Also, so if you're not a subscriber, feel free to subscribe to the channel. Just smash that subscription button right down there. And feel free to leave your comments after this. I read all the comments, even the abusive ones. I read those as well. Sometimes they're entertaining, sometimes they're not. And also smash the like button. I've done no e-begging here for for super chats or for likes, but please let's get a lot of likes here. I like this to be a really well-liked video so that more people watch it, because the higher number of likes you get as a percentage of views, the more likely is that there'll be impressions of this video for other YouTube followers to watch, and so they'll be alerted to it, and they'll, oh, what's this? Well, let's go listen to this. So in that way, I'd like to see lots of people watch this in Unathi. And by the way, I had a video, Things Are Getting Scary in South Africa, which has crossed 23,000 views. I just have 3,400 subscribers, so that's quite a few views. So thank you all so much for that. All right, so Unathi, we didn't even get around to Institute for Race Relations or all the other things in South Africa, and we didn't really talk about secession. So would you be interested in coming back on the channel at some point? Can I get you back on?
Absolutely. I'm always happy to. I mean, I never get these opportunities in South Africa except for from Jim or Roman Kabinet, or Garrett Cliff on Cliff Central. But we need to. I need my voice to be out there because I have a lot to say, and I think the world must know what's happening in this country. Someone asked about Black Lives Matter. I don't subscribe to the organization because of its polarizing nature. It's not helping anyone. No. When you are saying you belong to Black Lives Matter, but you go to Black communities and you destroy businesses where Black people are employed, I have no time for you. Okay. So, I mean, the fact that you are stopping people from going to work and you're using all this energy instead of, I say to people, if you say Black Lives Matter, why don't you help fix the education system in these Black communities? Because without good education, the poverty cycle will continue, and the criminals will continue. Because if you're not educated, what else do you have to do? What else is there for you? You just choose to become a criminal. So if you really believe that Black Lives Matter, then help out the teachers. Help out after school programs where Black children can get better education, so that they have better lives for themselves and get out of these toxic environments. So I don't subscribe to them, and I got into trouble really for I always get into trouble for telling things as they are, because I believe that you can't fix something if you're not willing to be honest. Honesty doesn't come. Sometimes it's not nice to be honest, because people like to. I don't know. That's why I don't even consider myself as a nice person, because nice people don't want to ruffle feathers. Nice people don't want to mess up with the status quo. So I don't belong in that group of nice people. And I will keep talking, and let's keep having these conversations. You can invite me anytime you want.
Well, thank you very much. I really appreciate that. By the way, another thing. So people have told me that you know Big Daddy Liberty. Is that correct?
Yes. He's
Yeah,
amazing.
No, he seems amazing. I'm subscribed to his channel. Could you do me a favor? I mean, you don't have to do it. You don't even have to answer. But just endless number of people have been coming on my stream since I I've had a channel since 2006, but obviously I couldn't speak my mind as a serving military member, so I didn't use it. I just had one video on there until February when I started this, because I just retired a few months ago from active service. So since February when I got started and people started coming to the channel, especially in March, April, May, lots of people were saying, we need to see Big Daddy Liberty and Chris in a conversation. We need to see that. We need to see that. And so I went to his channel, and there's an email address there. I wrote to him, and people coming. I wrote to him 4 times over the span of 3 weeks. He never responded. I presume that he never gets the mail, or he's busy and didn't check it. And then someone gave me another email address they had on him. They said, no, this is the one he uses. I wrote, he didn't respond. I don't have any
No,
beef.
I'm sure.
He's
I'm
just
sure
busy
you would
guy.
love.
He's a busy guy, I'm
Yeah.
imagining. So
No. I'll hook you up with him
Okay,
on
good.
WhatsApp, and I'm sure you will love to speak to you.
Okay, great. I would love to have him on my channel because people are asking for it. Look, I was reticent to do a Cape Secession story on the channel because I'm not convinced the efficacy of it or the utility of it. But I brought on Phil Craig yesterday because people asked for it. People have been asking for Big Daddy Liberty. I'm actually absolutely convinced that he's a great guest, but I haven't been able to reach him, so I'm happy to bring him on. So listen, if you could do me one favor too, not tonight, but something I'd also like from you is, listen, I know a fair amount of Tswana because I lived in Botswana, and so I get along fine in Northwest and in the Pretoria area with people speaking Tswana and Botswana. I know the only word I know in Zulu, of course, is Sawubona, but I know nothing in Xhosa. So maybe someday you could teach me a little bit of Xhosa.
Oh, you could say instead of sawubona, in Xhosa we say molo.
Molo, okay. And
Yes.
it means the same. Does it mean I see you, or does it mean something else?
No. Molo as in hi
Okay, all right. So
or hello.
right? Because sawubona is a greeting, but literally it means I see you. So I actually like that. It's
Yes.
kind of cool. Okay, well,
Yeah.
good deal. Well, thank you for that. Well, that mola, that's that. Okay, that's good. I've learned something new today. It's always good to know. I
Yes.
speak.
Or if it's a group of people, we say molweni.
You put this a plural. Okay, got it. I'm going to
Yeah.
have to write that down. All right, well, excellent. Well, we'll have you back on, and I'd love to do that. We'll check. Can I ask you to stay on the line as I close out the show,
Sure.
and then we'll chat briefly? All right, so I'm going to take
All right.
her off the screen. I'm leaving your mic on, so don't start having a conversation.
Okay.
All
All right.
Okay, thank you so much for being my guest today. I'm going to take you off there, Unathi. Okay, so she's off. Ladies and gentlemen, you've been watching Indaba Africa. This is Chris Wyatt from Central Pennsylvania. A location which I've discovered apparently is the target of Antifa and Black Lives Matters as they intend to invade the Gettysburg National Monument and Memorial Battlefield site on the 4th of July to damage the monuments. This is the story that I found out about last night. I don't know if it's true, and I hope it's not true. People trying to erase history. How do we learn from history if people simply ignore it and erase it? We're not going to allow this sort of nonsense to continue in this country. And hopefully, when I say we, I'm talking about all Americans, patriotic Americans from all walks of life and all races and all ethnicities and all religions. Those who believe in the unique idea and purpose of being American, which is not an ethnicity, it's an idea. Anyway, so not to go too much detail on that, but I'll bring that up in my live stream. I will have a live stream later today. I'll go ahead and do it at 9:35 in South Africa time, Habaroni, same time. And that'll be at 3:35 or 15:35 for those of you in uniform here on the East Coast of the United States. Do a follow-up for my conversation here with Unathi Kwaza, and we'll talk about some things we didn't get a chance to get to. So feel free to check in to the stream later on, folks. Thanks so much for the super chats I got there. Yes, Joe Emilio, I saw that you want to link up with the Texas conservative chick. I think she got the word there. So thank you so much. Joe popped in. Ladies and gentlemen, you've been listening to Indaba Africa. This is Chris. Thank you so much. I don't want to prattle on here. So I'll see you all later this evening. For those who tune in, God bless. And my special thanks to my guests and for everybody for their contributions. God bless. Have a pleasant day and evening. And